Alright, in this video I'm going to walk through basic Zoom features on how to lead a classroom and create that organized classroom using Zoom. And the first step to all of this is organizing or creating your classroom really. And if you sign up for Zoom, you'll be greeted with this screen right here. And you have new meeting, join, schedule, and share screen. We'll walk into that after we set up some of the settings. So if we go to meetings, this is your personal meeting ID. And if you share that personal meeting ID with students, all they have to do is join a meeting, type in that personal ID, and type in a password if you set it. So here's how you set it. If you go to edit and you click on password, require meeting password, I would do that to secure your link. I set it up to something that's different, but for the sake of this video, I typed in password. And the video for the host, if you don't want to use video at all, just put that off. I use on participant video. If you don't want to see your students, press off. Press off. But if you do want to see your students, I would go on. And audio, I like to give my students the option of using Zoom on the computer or Zoom on a telephone call. In the advanced options, you can enable the waiting room. I would do that. So what the waiting room is just a room that people who try to join your call will be put into this separate room. And in that separate room, you have the option to accept them or not accept them. And this is really good for when students use inappropriate names or try to join under fake names, things like that. I don't accept them if they do that. And they have to exit and they have to put a real name or an actual appropriate name, and then I can accept them. It's also good for leading individual office hour sessions because I can accept one student, meet with them, and then when they're done, accept the other student. And there's also a button to accept all the students. I'll show you that in a bit. But another thing that I like to do is mute participants on entry, because otherwise there's like 10 different people with their mics on and it ends up being this cacophony of sounds. So this really prevents that from being a mess at the get-go. It's kind of like having a classroom where everybody comes in just talking really loudly, and it's hard to get that classroom back on track at the beginning. With Zoom, you do have the optional benefit of just muting everybody, but muting participants on entry just makes it easy immediately. And there's also a button to automatically record meeting on local computer. I don't like to automatically record meetings because I like to let my students know when I'm recording. So I don't check that. And that's about it. So I save it. Now I have two ways to share my Zoom to my students. The first way is just to share my personal meeting ID and password. The second way, which I find a bit easier for the students, is click on show meeting invitation and actually just share this link right here. So this leads directly into your personal meeting room, and all students have to do for the whole year is click on that meeting link. And sometimes it requires a password, sometimes it doesn't. But it's really easy because they can just click on it. It makes it a lot easier for them to get on it, which means that I can start my class sooner. Now, if I want to host a meeting with just one student, what I'll do sometimes is set up a private meeting. And how I do that is I say meeting, student name. And I'll set a time. Right now it's 12:36, so I'll say 12:30 p.m. to, let's say, 1:30 p.m., an hour meeting. It probably won't be that long. But location, it's online. So Zoom University. And conferencing, this is where I'm going to set up that Zoom link. I'm going to click on it and I have two options, Hangouts, Meet, or Zoom. I use Zoom because there's more features and that's the point of this video. So let's click on Zoom and it'll set up that meeting. So all that student has to do when I add that guest is just click on that link. It makes it really easy. And description, to discuss your grade. And I'll make this a little friendlier, add the smiley face. I think that makes it a little creepier. And then I'll save it, and now it's right there. And if I go into my Zoom and go home, it's actually now scheduled into my schedule at the very home. So it makes it really easy, and I just have to click start. Now, I'm going to show through an example of what a meeting looks like. So I'll start a new meeting. and walk through the basic controls. I would join with the computer audio, but I'm using the mic for this video. So I'm just gonna exit that. And this is what the screen looks like. My webcam is covered right now, but I'm gonna join on a separate computer. And inside that separate computer, I joined as Daniel number 2. And if I click on manage participants, this is the waiting room. So it says one person is waiting, and on my other screen, it says please wait. The meeting host will let you in soon. So I have the power to remove that student or admit that student or even message the waiting room. Usually when I'm sending a message to the waiting room, I usually say, I'm almost done with my meeting. The next student will be up soon. Just to give them that chance to prepare, and it shows up inside the waiting room. And let's say I admit that student. Boom, they're in. Now, here are the different options that I have. Let me actually join with computer audio on my other computer. And I have join with audio, so I can enable my audio. I can stop video, stops my video. Right now, my mic or my screen is covered, but I do have video on. So if I stop video, it just shows my profile photo, whatever it is. If I want to invite students, I can click on invite and type in their email, or copy the invitation or copy the URL. Meeting password is password. Manage participants, it allows me to open up this feature right here and see all my participants. And inside the manage participants, I'll walk through a few features after I go through all these buttons actually. So share screen, I'll cover that as well. But share screen allows you to share your screen, your computer screen. And there's a few more features that I will also walk through. And chat. So this is the cool feature. It allows you to chat with people, and it lets you pick who to chat with. You can chat with everybody inside the meeting. Daniel number 2 specifically. So if I want that student to, let's say, I don't know, like, hello, Daniel number 2. So it's a way of sending a message specifically to that student. And that student can actually chat back, and you'll see it pop up here. And it shows that it's a private message. If I want to send it to everybody, everybody will get that message. Wow, I cannot type today. And I can also attach a file. And also, I can control my students talking to each other. So if I do not want my students to talk with anybody, I can put nobody. That's like silencing them. If I want them to only talk with me and chat with me, that's host only. So that means that students can only send messages privately to you. And if I want my students to be able to talk publicly, then I would choose this. If I want students to talk privately and publicly, which means that they can send direct messages privately with students and you wouldn't be able to see it. Until, if you're recording this Zoom meeting, you will actually get a transcript of all the messages that students send, even to each other privately. So it's not quite private. If you record it, you may want to let them know about that before they send things. And you can also save the chat. And another feature that you have is reactions. They can clap, they can put thumbs up. That's about all you got. And it really creates this is like a way for a quick formative assessment even. So let's say you have an A and B question. You can make this clap A and this thumbs up B, and all the students could do a reaction according to what answer they want to choose. So let's say student chooses A. You'll see them with the clap right there. And you know instantly, like real quick, if you're on the gallery view, which is this, you'll know what all the students chose. There's only 2 reactions though, so that's kind of a bummer. But maybe a third reaction would be no reaction. So you could have A, B, and C then. And this right here is one view. This is the gallery view, and you'll see all the students on this screen. And if you want to change to speaker view, what it does is it puts the speaker up front. So whoever's talking will be up front, and it uses a mic to determine who's talking. And it brings them up to the front and center. Inside the gallery view, the person who's talking will have this border around it, so you know who to focus on. Another feature that you can do is controlling students, managing their audio and video. And this is really important, especially when it comes to you trying to get the class back together. You can just hit mute all and it mutes everybody. You can also unmute everybody. You can also mute participants on entry quick right here, allow participants to unmute themselves. So if you mute them, you're greeted with this screen right here. Allow participants to unmute themselves. If you don't want to give them the power to unmute themselves, then you can uncheck that. And to change that, you would just go click more, and now they can unmute themselves if you click on this option. Otherwise, they won't be able to unmute themselves. Another thing that you can do is play an exit and enter chime. So whenever somebody exits or enters, there's going to be a chime that happens, so you know when somebody enters or exits. And this is good when you're managing a huge classroom with, like, let's say 35 even, and you have a bunch of names here and you won't know if somebody leaves unless you're eyeing that number. If you check that, you'll know if a student leaves if you hear that sound. Now another thing that you can do is unmute students. So if you click unmute, they're going to be unmuted. You can also ask them to start video. And on their screen, it's going to pop up with the question, the host has asked you to start a video. And they have the option of later and start my video. You cannot automatically enable their video because that's definitely like an invasion of privacy. But they can put later, and you'll see Daniel 2 will start video later. But muting and unmuting, you have the power to unmute their mic without them having to allow or deny it. So you do have control over that, but for the video part, you can ask them to start the video. If they did start the video though, you can actually disable their video. That one's different. So you can disable it without their permission to disable. Now, sometimes students will join with names that are not appropriate, and an easy way to change that is just rename them. Let's say he's demoted to Daniel number 3, and now it changes their name. You can also put them back into the waiting room, and you basically kick them back out to the waiting room, and you have to accept them or remove them now. So if you, let's say, want a student to wait outside, it's like kind of saying wait outside, or I'm going to have a meeting with this person. I'm going to put the rest into a waiting room. You can do that as well. So that's one way to control students. And that's really the main things that you can do. If you're leaving the meeting, you can make them the host of the meeting. So if you are leaving the meeting and you still want them to meet without your presence, you can just make them the host of it. And the video will keep on recording even without you there until they end the meeting. So that's the most of managing student video, audio, and chat. Now the next feature I'm going to be talking about is sharing your screen. So here's what sharing your screen looks like. You have a few options here. You have screen, so that shares your whole desktop. Whiteboard, it brings up a whiteboard and you can write. iPhone or iPad. If you have an iPhone or iPad, you can actually AirPlay that iPad or iPhone into the screen and actually share that with them as well. You can share specific applications. And before I show all of that, if you want to share your screen and share video, make sure to share computer sound as well. Otherwise, you're just sharing your screen, not your audio, until you check off this button. But let's share my whole screen, and you'll see it changes to this right here. And basically, it's your computer screen, and you have the option to move things around, you have the option to open things, and they can all see that on their screen. It does take up their whole screen. Another thing that you can do is annotate. So if you want to say, all right, so you're going to click on home, it annotates that home on their screen. And it really allows you to focus. Spotlight is just, think of it like a little spotlight, and it's like a presentation pointer. It's good for pointing things out. Like let's say you're doing a biology classroom and you want them to look at a specific part of the mitochondria. Then you would just use that to highlight it. Or if you're doing like physiology or anatomy and you are showing them the human body and you want them to see like a specific part of the body, you would do that as well. So that's an easy way to do it. Clearing it just clears the screen, clear all drawings, clears the screen. You can actually type on the screen as well. This is text, and they see that on their screen. And it just stays on their screen. You can clear all drawings as well. And ultimately, that's like the most of the features. This is good for like PowerPoints. If you're trying to show them how to do something, this is a perfect feature for that. So to exit that, just stop share. And it brings you back to the screen. Now, I'm going to show you the whiteboard. This works best if you have an iPad or a touchscreen laptop. I'm using a desktop right now. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult on a laptop without a touchscreen. But if you do have a laptop with a touchscreen, this is perfect for that. Yeah. So I'll stop share with that. If you want to share your screen with an iPhone or iPad, you can do that as well. So you do have to download an extension, but basically connect your iPad or iPhone to the same network and screen mirror it. I noticed that there is a little bit of lag depending on your Wi-Fi, so just be wary of that. But it does work pretty well, and it's perfect if you want to share your iPad screen with something that's just quick. If you want to share your iPad screen to annotate, my recommendation for that is just go on Zoom directly from your iPad and share from there. So if you're using Notability, GoodNotes, or something like that to teach, just share it directly from your iPad. It makes it a lot easier. And there's no latency or lag between the iPad and the computer. Think of it like having to communicate not only with the iPad, but also to the computer, then the students. But if you do it directly from the iPad or iPhone, it shares directly from the iPhone to the students. Now, in advanced, this is where if I only want to share a portion of the screen, I can. So if I notice here, students will only see whatever section is selected. And this is perfect for if I want to designate this portion of my screen for students and nothing else. So students will only see the notepad right here, and nothing else will be seen. So this is a perfect way of like limiting what students see. And on the other side, you can have your meeting notes or something there that you don't want students to see. Or maybe if you're doing a quiz, like a pub quiz questions here. You probably can't see that. Quiz questions here, and then just for your sanity, you can have the quiz answers here. And they won't be able to see the answers, but you will. So I'll stop sharing with that. And that's the gist of screen sharing. There are a few more features that you can check out. I don't have a second camera, but if you had an Elmo or some kind of second camera that can connect to your computer, this is a perfect place for it, like a document camera, and then you can share directly from that document camera. And files is where you can share direct files from Google Drive. If you want to just throw a PowerPoint or a Google Slides at students, just do it from here. And they can all open it up. So, real easy. So screen sharing has a lot of different features. I'm not going to walk through every single one of them, but the one that I use the most is screen. And then when I'm on my iPad, I actually share a whiteboard a lot because it makes it really easy to just write. Students can actually share their screen too. So if you click on the up arrow here and go to advanced sharing options, how many participants can share at the same time? I put one participant because then I don't need 5 people sharing their screens. I can't look at 5 different screens. Who can share? If you want to be the only one who's sharing, put only host. If you want students to also be able to share, click on all participants, but you can override their screen sharing with yours. So if you want them to be done and you're telling them to get off, but they're not, then you can take over. But if you want students to be able to share over each other, so let's say one student's sharing and then another student's, oh, I have something to share, and they can just share it too, you would click on all participants for who can start sharing when somebody else is sharing. I personally set that to only host, so I tell them to cancel and then say, all right, student number 2, can you share your screen now? So it does help create a organized classroom. But this is the purpose of this. I use mainly for presentations. So when students are presenting, I will allow all participants to share. But otherwise, I have it set to only host so that only I can throw my screen up. Because sometimes what will happen is I'm talking and then a student overrides my face with their screen. So yeah, I have it set to that setting. The next option is, or the next feature is recording a call. Now, disclaimer, I always tell students that I'm recording them. Also double check with the school to see if you can record certain students. Some students cannot be recorded because documents, things like that. So to record, you just press allow record and it records. Then you have two options: pause. If you want to still record but not record a certain section, pause it. If you want to stop the recording, press stop and it will start converting the video onto your desktop. And that's the recording feature. There isn't too much to talk about here. I would recommend just the biggest one: let students know that you're recording. And to upload that recording, what I would do is go on Google Drive. I'm not going to pull up my Google Drive because I have all my documents there, but pull up Google Drive, upload it, and then on my calendar, I always go to the event, and after it's finished, I attach the file here. Attach the video file here. And that way, when students want to go back to see the recording, maybe they wanted to go look at the class again, or they missed the first part of the class and they wanted to go check it out, they can just go to the calendar, click on the video file here. So just upload it to Google Drive, share that with everybody, get shareable link, send that out. You can send it out on Google Classroom too. Just create an organized system to share with students. And that's the main features of Zoom that you need to create that organized classroom. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll try and get back to you. No promises, but that's most of the features that I use.